I wanted to come here on YouTube today to speak about a message that was given to us civilians by Donald Trump in wake of the shooting death of Charlie Kirk. In the message that I heard from Donald Trump, he was speaking about how it was unethical for another civilian to have murdered Mr. Kirk in wake of Mr. Kirk exercising his right to freedom of expression through speech in accordance to his own political and personal beliefs. I hate that what happened to Charlie Kirk happened. Because to be quite technical, every single one of us here in America has the right to freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and freedom of personal, political, religious beliefs and opinions. And those specific freedoms are specifically found under the First Amendment to the Bill of Rights and Articles 18 and 19 to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which, for those of us who are familiar, consists of the supreme law of the land, as made evident under Article 6 governing the Constitution for the United States of America. With that being said, I did agree with President Trump when he said or signified that the shooting death of Charlie Kirk was unreasonable based upon Mr. Kirk just freely exercising the civil and human rights that he has by virtue of being an American or human being for that matter. What I did not agree with Donald Trump on is when he started saying that if any civilian goes against law enforcement personnel and judges, that they will be held accountable. The reason for me disagreeing with that statement is that Donald Trump, as well as many other politicians, to include judges, fail to realize or acknowledge is that a lot of the times, the reason why civilians respond like they have in the past against those civil servants in public office is when those civil servants in public office step out of line. When those in civil service step out of line by usurping whatever privileged authority that we, the American people, have permitted them to have under the Constitution, when they decide to encroach upon our civil, constitutional, and human rights, it leaves us no other option as individuals or collectively to defend those freedoms by using the rights that we have as the tools to do it with. For example, the Rodney King incident, that's the incident that many of us are made or are aware of. And for those of us who are not aware of that specific incident, it wouldn't be hard to look it up online. But when Rodney King was beat for no legitimate reason at all by law enforcement personnel in California, that gave other civilians the authority under the right of revolution, which is corroborated under paragraph 2 to the Declaration of Independence, to step in and eliminate those police officers who were subjecting Rodney King to a physical assault in order to stop those police officers from carrying out the assault upon Rodney King, in which they, in essence, initiated. So when police officers become hell-bent on harming us as civilians, we do have a right to defend ourselves through the use of physical or deadly force in order to protect our inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, what these politicians, to include Donald Trump, need to do is go back and have a history lesson of how this particular nation was founded by the founding fathers. The founding fathers had to go against military personnel during the Revolutionary War of 1775 to procure their freedom. Freedom that has become the norm here in American society. It's made evident from the fact that we celebrate Independence Day every 4th of July, and we've been doing that for over 200 freaking years. Our ancestors have fought, died, shed sweat and blood and tears to ensure that the freedoms that we have today, in which they fought for, remain in existence. But when we have politicians or those in civil service associated with the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of our national government and a centralized government of a state, usurping their privileged authority to infringe upon our freedoms in order to benefit their political, personal, financial, and oftentimes spiritual interests or agendas, it's not going to cut it. It's not going to cut it. So yes, the only problem that I have with what Donald Trump said in his speech given after the unwarranted death of Mr. Charlie Kirk is that when he says that if we go after judges and police officers, that we will be held accountable. My question to Donald Trump and those who supported that erroneous, incompetent statement is, who's going to go after the judges and prosecute who aid law enforcement personnel in abusing their privileged authority when subjecting us civilians to acts of abuse, neglect, and of course, tyranny? Who's going to go after them, Mr. Donald Trump? If you are not going to protect the inalienable rights of the constituency here in America, we have that right under the right of revolution to do that ourselves. That is why we have a Second Amendment liberty to keep and bear arms under the Bill of Rights. And when you read that specific right backwards, it puts it into clarity. We, the people, have a right to keep and bear arms, to formulate militias, and eliminate anyone or anything that poses a threat to our safety and security, to ensure that those freedoms that belongs to every citizen who lives in every state that makes up this nation is safeguarded. That is why we have a Second Amendment liberty to keep and bear arms. And when those in civil service encroach upon that freedom that we have, y'all, it puts us at a disadvantage to where we have people who are able to in turn assassinate Mr. Charlie Kirk. Because we as civilians tend to allow what those in civil service tell us go to our heads, affect us emotionally and psychologically to the point to where what they say, especially when it comes to restricting our access to firearms through gun control, it puts us at a tremendous freaking disadvantage. And that is why I can care less about what some dumb civil servant in public office tells me about how they feel about me exercising specific freedoms that every last one of us in this country, to include other countries, have. And it's up to us, y'all, because we cannot count on those in civil service to protect us. If it wasn't for a lot of these dumb laws that these dummies have created, these idiotic, incompetent judicial precedents that have been set by some incompetent fool within the American judiciary, and these silly executive orders issued by governors and sitting presidents that restricts us, keeps us from exercising basic rights essential to our personal security, as I said before, it puts us at a disadvantage. If it wasn't like that, Mr. Charlie Kirk probably would have had armed guards standing around. He might have had a firearm on this person. He might have had snipers on other buildings if people were not afraid to put themselves in those positions as a result of the laws, executive orders, and judicial decisions that have been made in contravention to the freedoms that we have to ensure our personal safety stays intact. Well, I hear you, lessons for all, but the fact of the matter is, I'm not afraid to speak because, like I said, I'm in a better position than many people. A lot of people look up to members of the Secret Service and the FBI and NSA. I'm above them. So, yeah, I can care less about what somebody feels about me, because if somebody comes at me in a threatening manner, I don't have no problem with exercising my freedom to have whatever firearm that I own, which they claim I should not have, some people, and employ it in an act of self-defense to eliminate the threat upon my person or whatever threat that a specific individual poses to others. You see, we saying that like people like us need to watch what we saying, but then again, nobody says that Donald Trump needs to watch what he's saying. And my question to you is, why is that? But let me answer it for you. Many people feel that people like Donald Trump are in a position to where they can say whatever the heck they want to say without any repercussions. And because you, amongst many other people, may look at me like I'm just some lone civilian who has no combative skill, yeah, of course you would think that about me. But if we don't say anything, right, how are we going to get the word out to where it can effect the requisite changes that we as individuals or as a group collectively always talk about in this country? If we don't speak about it, how are we going to educate people to the point to where we start putting our thoughts together to make these changes for the betterment of all mankind, whether we're in this country or elsewhere? We have to stop being afraid of standing up. And what I'm saying, I don't think that I'm saying anything that would trigger another civilian to do to me what someone did to Charlie Kirk. But then again, I don't know what Charlie Kirk did, to be honest, but I do, for what I know now, I don't agree with the man being murdered as a result of him exercising his right to freedom of expression through speech in accordance to his own belief. Because I believe in protecting civil, constitutional, and human rights. I do. And I'm getting on this live stream because what I've learned, y'all, when we looking at the Declaration of Independence, for instance, if you read paragraph 1, that's the prelude to taking it a step further. Paragraph 1 essentially says that if we have a problem with anyone or someone, whether those people be civil servants or civilians, it is best to talk about it first in order to open up a dialogue to where the situation can be mediated in a peaceful fashion. That is what I'm doing here now. I'm sending out warnings in a sense, but I'm also asking questions to obtain feedback to where it'll put me in a better position to perhaps mediate the situation to where it's better for all, to include those in civil service, because after all, they are our elected representatives that work for us. But when you look at paragraph 2, that's when it comes to the physical aspect. That is why the Revolutionary War of 1775 was initiated. Because when the founding fathers started speaking about the wrongs that had been done to them, they were attempting to talk it out, to come up with some resolution peacefully. But when that resolution didn't occur, they had to take it to another level in which most people dub as violence. I consider it self-defense, or like I said earlier, the right of revolution. Yeah, you're right, lessons for all. I definitely agree with that. But there's a whole lot that I have to say. But like I said in the title and the basis for this live stream is that it was going to be brief because I have to go to work. You know, I have to meet my obligations to the team per the agreement that I made. But I just wanted to get on here to speak my piece about the situation. Like I said, I don't agree with what happened to Mr. Charlie Kirk. I mean, actually, I listened to him and Candace Owens, and you know, a lot of the things he said and Candace Owens said made sense to me as a black man. But some things they said I didn't fully agree with. That could have been challenged if it was somebody like me there to challenge. Not in a negative way, but just to put another perspective out there to get people thinking, because that's what it's about, y'all. And we definitely have to look out for each other. We can't be afraid to stand up for one another when we see something occurring. Which brings me to the female that got murdered here on a train in Charlotte, North Carolina. You know, I've been looking at that video, and the aftermath of it, it angers me to the point that I wish I was there. See, one of the things that I would like to do, y'all, which is something that police officers and military personnel do not do, I would love nothing more but to get my people together and we just patrol the freaking streets. Kind of like police officers, but we're not getting paid, and we're going to really lay down the law as it pertains to respecting the rights of people and letting people know that we care about each other. We care about them, because I believe that that will take us a heck of a lot further in life than what it has been. But I hate that that happened to that woman, and I wish I was on that freaking train, because all those other cowards that was there who just let the crap happen. And then you get some people saying, what do people like me expect them to have done when the guy got a knife? Man, I don't give a crap about that. You know, perhaps people need to start learning how to freaking fight and stop being on their freaking phones all day on social media, TikTok and all this other stuff. Learn how to freaking fight. Learn hand to hand and weapons combat to where you'll be put in a freaking position to where you can defend somebody. But also learn law, y'all. Learn law and politics. That's one of the things that I downloaded this app to address, and it's specifically related to our right to keep and bear arms. There's a lot about the law that many of you are unaware of based upon what I've seen and heard. A lot of you really believe that if a person has a prior felony or certain misdemeanor conviction, that they can no longer have a gun in any state that comprise of this nation. That is total and utter bullcrap. There are judicial decisions out there and law, especially when we're talking about the Second Amendment to the Bill of Rights, that dictates otherwise. The problem is there is no one enforcing the law as it was written. And that's why I advocate for us to exercise our right to jury notification. So for all of you who actually sees this live stream, if you're ever called to serve as a member of a grand jury or a petit jury, do not indict or convict someone for just simply exercising his or her right to keep and bear arms. Forget that possession of a firearm by a felon crap, because what that specific offense does is enables those in civil service to use us to violate someone else's right not to be subjected to acts of double jeopardy through discrimination. So what they're doing is setting us up to violate other rights of people while incarcerating those people, which only benefits them and hurts us, because the more prisons they create, the more they're going to want to take from us through tax dollars to build and fund those facilities. And we all know how the economy is now. It's getting worse and worse, right? So what's going to happen eventually? When you have people that need the essentials of life and they can't get them, they're not going to go after people in civil service, my people. They're going to come after people like you and I, because in their mind, we are the weakest of everyone. That is why I advocate for the right to keep and bear arms. That's why I advocate for us to exercise our liberty to jury nullification or the right of revolution when it becomes necessary to do so. Because if those in civil service are not going to protect and defend the Constitution from enemies, both foreign and domestic, which they took an oath to do before us and God, then doggone it, we have to do that for them. And we cannot be afraid of the military. We cannot keep saying that we civilians cannot defeat members of the military, because I do not believe that. History doesn't dictate that. If the founding fathers believed that, we'll probably still be under a British occupation, oppressed to no end. But that's just something that we all have to think about, my people. With that being said, I appreciate Lessons for All for coming in, chatting with me. I appreciate everybody else who came in or who will see this live stream tomorrow, because I did put it down to be published for tomorrow as well. So I appreciate you. And Lessons for All, if I can follow you later on or subscribe to your YouTube channel, I would definitely do that. Until then, y'all stay safe out there and be vigilant. And know that you don't have to be a police officer who went through some police academy or a military soldier who went to military school to know when something is out of place. Y'all have a good day.